Now, there's a question here. What is an effective classroom assessment? Kasi of course, I think all of us are teachers or education students or practitioners. We're always doing assessments. We are always giving tests to our student. After our lesson, we give exam. Or before, we technically in our class we have the diagnostic, the formative, and the summative type of assessment. Pero most of the time, we give the exams at the latter part para ma-assess natin if the students are learning or if the student really understand our section or our lesson. Okay, so what are the effective classroom assessment? First, uh, one of the characteristic is the assessment should match the content and performance objective. Please be reminded that when we're giving exam, for example, our topic is atom, we need to assess the student if they really know or if they really learn about atom, not about molecule. So sometimes there is a mismatch that is happening. Hindi nagtutugma. Parang sa figure na to. This one, there's my pointer. Ayan. So there's mismatch between the two. And sometimes the student really don't have a lower score because they are answering differently kasi nga, for example, this person, example that question is, what do you see? This boy or this person is seeing a snake. So it means here, there is technically a mismatch between your objectives or learning competencies with your assessment. So here you're going to adapt methods to fit your class rather than simply using a method and techniques from others. Okay, so another characteristics is this one. So it must be formative. So the main purpose of classroom assessment is to improve the learning in progress by providing teachers with feedback. So example, I think most of the time naman when we're doing social media, there is all even the social media is asking us if the social media is working well. 'Di ba yung Facebook may makikita kayong star, even when you do Shopee or Lazada, you're going to have their star if you have a good product or if you have a good if you experience a good delivery of your products, 'di ba? So similar to that, we also need to give feedbacks. So by providing teachers with feedbacks on their teaching effectiveness and student comprehension. Example, most of your student has a high score, then you're going to reflect, 'di ba? Am I teaching properly or sobrang dali lang ng examination ko kaya sila mataas yung score? Or sometimes naman sobrang baba ng student, mag-iisip ka eh, saan kaya ako nagkamali or saan kaya ako kailangan mag-improve? So that's the one of the effective classroom assessment. Another one is the assessment activities should consider the learner's race, gender, learning needs, learning style, language learning, abilities and disabilities, cultural background, and socioeconomic status. This image is well used in education. For example, the teacher wants to assess his or her student. And in here, you can see for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. But the question is, or the command is, please climb the tree. Now you're going to ask, is this the proper way to assess your students? Again, diversity, students have different learning style, different learning abilities, and you need to have an assessment that caters those students. Kaya nga, pupunta na tayo sa more authentic way of assessment. And we all know the one that will have the advantage here is the monkey because the monkey is the one that can climb the tree. And if the fish will go out from the pond or into the aquarium, the fish will die. Number one is it builds a culture of success in the classroom. So here, you need to use a range of assessment methods. So, eto pa lang, plural pa lang, assessment methods and activities. So, hindi lang pwedeng palaging paper and test or paper and test type. yung ating examination or ang ating assessment tool to our students' learning. So here we're going to apply approaches that really assess the student's ability, lalo na if you want to assess the higher thinking skills of the student. Possibly kasi mataas yung score nila kasi they memorize everything. But they are just using those memorized thing in the lower thinking skills and not in the higher one. So demonstrate their learning on the on the knowledge, understanding, skills, values defined in the curriculum to achieve a culture of success. Okay, so we have a question here. So as a teacher, as an educator, we need to ask ourselves which technique is appropriate to answer questions and not which questions are appropriate to fit the assessment technique. Another characteristics is this one. Ito, madami to. When I'm I'm first practitioner of teaching, sometimes wag naiinis si teacher, nagbibigay ng exam. So take one more sheet of paper, then quiz tayo. Kasi nga magulo yung class. Again, assessment it will not be used for class management, but rather it's used for assessing learning, 'di ba? So assessment of learning should never be used as punishment or as a disciplinary measure. So we have here the question, how will knowing the answer to these questions help improve my students' learning? Diba? So example, alam ng students yung sagot. Pero the next question is, do they have really an understanding to that questions? And another to keep in mind, if an assessment is worth doing, it's worth teaching students how to engage in the process of or in a meaningful way. Okay. So another characteristics of an effective classroom assessment is it emphasizes real-world application that favors realistic performance over out of context drills items. So again, here eto na papasok yung ating authentic assessment. Kasi nga in authentic assessment, we can now emphasize or we can now connect the student to the world beyond the paper and test or beyond multiple choice type of examination. So in applying this real world application, it enhances the student's learning by how? So first, focusing attention on what was taught, engaging deep processing and connecting it to other information from the learner's background kasi you will ask prior knowledge of the student, paano i-connect ng student, for example, solution, the topic is solution, how the student will connect that in their kitchen, in preparing meal. So mas authentic ngayon kasi we're touching the experiences of the students. And lastly, we have your encouraging metacognition, then thinking about learning and thinking. Okay. So another characteristics of effective classroom assessment is the result of the assessment must be fed back to the learners. So technically, eto tayo, sa sobrang dami nating tinuturo every day or sometimes ang dami nating students, we tend to forget this one. Ang ibibigay na lang natin sa bata is their final grade. 'Di ba? Like, at the end of the session or at the end of the period, bibigyan natin ng 75. Now the question is, what do 75 means, 'di ba? Or after the exam, after the long test, nababa yung score ng student. Let's say out of 50, he or her she got, let's say 26. Ngayon from that number, we need to give a meaning from that. And that's the reason why we need to give feedback to students. So saan sila nahihirapan, ano pang lesson yung kailangan nilang i-improve, or what are the topics that they need to nagpo-focus si teacher. Okay. So here, telling them what they have done well, so positive feedback to the students. Again, remember there's always a room for improvement. So even though your student is very intellectual or they are getting high scores, there's always what they need to improve. And another thing is how they will improve it. So you will give feedback to your students na these are the things that you can do. Example, you are having problem in mathematical processing or problem solving, you need to give them more exercise on that part.